Skarner is currently the most unpopular champion in the entire game, sitting around a 1% popularity throughout the whole season. Despite the popularity, Skarner's win rate is actually incredibly good, sitting around a steady 50% win rate and often even much higher. When looking at the data and history of Skarner, he's actually had multiple moments where he became popular and meta, easily peaking a 15% play rate in 2014 and another 8% play rate in 2018. What happened to Skarner, and is he still worth playing in the future? Let's dive a little deeper into Skarner and see what's going on. Skarner is primarily known as a jungler thanks to his amazing abilities to gank, but is also known to work very well in top lane. When Skarner is played in the jungle, the game completely changes and turns into a minigame for both Skarner and the other 9 players thanks to the passive. In case you don't know, the passive spawns crystal spires around the map, and either you or the enemy team must claim it, and this makes Skarner either super strong or incredibly weak. Now, when Skarner is played in top lane instead, claiming a crystal spire for your own is good, but it's not needed to perform well in top lane. Since the majority of the time, you'll either be focusing on the short trades or looking to set up the lane for ganks. Even if you don't have a crystal spire now, you can still claim one later when leaving the lane, which also applies with jungle Skarner as well. If you don't have your passive now, you can still gank lanes easily and get the crystal spire later. Now, here's the question: why is Skarner unpopular despite being pretty strong at the moment? Here's why. Skarner has a few issues, and this mainly has to do with the passive Crystal Spire. Like I've said earlier, Skarner is incredibly strong if he claims the Crystal Spires for himself and uses the field in his advantage. However, if the enemy team has counterpicked Skarner just by champions alone, or they have an advantage with winning lanes or just complete pressure around the map the full game straight, there is no way of claiming the Crystal Spire for Skarner without having any pressure on the map. So without the passive, Skarner is still playable, but he's also incredibly weak. And this makes Skarner not a consistent viable option to play in every game, especially in high elo play where players counterpick a lot. This means that you won't be able to main the champion at all, since you're easily putting yourself at a disadvantage in some games. There's a lot of other junglers that don't need to rely on an objective at all to perform well, and this is why Skarner is a much more viable pick as an off-meta top laner. Here's why. Like I've mentioned earlier, Skarner is a great champ for setting up ganks in lane. However, there's another reason why Skarner Top is amazing. Thanks to his ultimate and large amount of CC, Skarner can freeze waves incredibly easy since he can drag targets right into it. He also has a decent amount of wave clear and can also be built as a tank, which fits top lane role very well. This is why Skarner has been showing up top lane a lot as an off-meta pick. Skarner can be built in multiple ways in the patch we live in today. The best build to go for right now is either a tanky build with movement speed in it, or going with a tanky on-hit build. If you are able to capture the Crystal Spire and keep it up for a long time and play around it, on-hit Skarner can easily shred anyone in seconds, making it extremely OP. However, if you don't have any tanks at all in your team, or you simply aren't able to capture your passive and use it at all, I highly advise going with a more tanky build for Skarner instead. I've also recently seen a lot of people experimenting with Skarner support with interesting builds. However, even though the champ has got a lot of abilities to make it work in that role, I don't recommend this to anyone at all. Now, is Skarner actually still worth playing in 2022 and also 2023? In my opinion, Skarner is definitely still worth picking up now, especially now more than ever before. The reason why I would recommend him is because no one really knows how to play against it. The champ is currently too inactive, which means no one ever gets to learn how they can counter Skarner's passive. This gives you a huge advantage as Skarner if you decide to main him and play him a lot. Another reason why Skarner is definitely worth playing now is his current ban rate. Since Skarner is barely played at all, that also means that his ban rate is extremely low, which means that every game you play, you're probably able to play Skarner without anyone stealing the champ or preventing you from playing it by using the ban. This is great for people that are looking for a champ to one-trick, as this is often the reason why you have to main other champions instead. And even though Skarner has got some clear weaknesses if you main him, in low or mid elo, it doesn't really matter at all, since people don't have a lot of knowledge on counterpicking, and even when they do, they most likely don't know how to play against it. Even though Skarner's current state is okay at the moment while being super underrated, I don't really mind Riot to rework this champion in the near future if it ever happens. The concept of Skarner with the passive is awesome, but it's definitely not healthy for the game to have new objectives spawning on the map depending on whether a specific champ is being picked. This adds a lot of confusion for new players playing League for the first time, but also kind of ruins the high elo play. Skarner players who main the champ have a slight advantage on the map because they know specifically on how they should path in the jungle to capture the passive and set up the game, and this could easily give other junglers a disadvantage if they barely ever play against a Skarner. Now, in general, people who main a champ always gets an advantage in one way or another when they play the same champ every day, but with Skarner, the enemy opponent's objective changes entirely, which I personally think isn't great. If Riot ever decides to rework Skarner anytime in the future, I hope they will keep the champion exactly the same like it is now, but at least getting rid of the passive and giving something back much better. There's a lot of cool things they could add to Skarner without actually ruining the champ. Anyway, now a few questions to you guys, and also something small that I want to mention. Please be aware that everything said in this video is my opinion, and you don't have to agree with anything that I've said. These are just my thoughts, and I've been wanting to share this with you guys for a while now. Anyway, now a few questions to you guys. Do you think that Skarner is fine in his current state, or does he need a rework? Also, do you prefer Skarner in top lane or in the jungle? Please let me know in the comments down below. I'm very curious to whether you guys have played him at all, and if so, in what role you've played him. Anyway, Skarner is an amazing champ, and I wish more people invested some time in Skarner, as he really deserves it. I've seen plenty of high elo Skarners in the past, but most of them have quit the champ at some point due to a few changes and the champ just being weird. Nowadays, I haven't really seen any Skarners at all, and I'm definitely not surprised at all either. Anyway, this is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys up in the next one.